Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I am Jonathan Chilia, joined by my lovely co-host Sam Vasallo, and here are your headlines for the day. Migrants cry for freedom during vocal protest in Ħal Far detention center. A map of COVID-19 cases in Malta has been released as 13 new cases confirmed on the island. Healthcare worker warns sneaker thieves that they could get COVID-19. Earth Garden and Ta'ali Beer Fest cancelled for a silent summer. And nominations now open for Lovin Malta Social Media Awards 2020. Sam, how goes it over there in quarantine?
Another week. It's super sunny outside, but we're inside working. Let's get through the day.
That's exactly it. It's actually a lovely day outside today. I had a sneak peek outside, but I didn't step outside. But talking about outside and talking about freedom, let's move on to the very first story of the day. Quite a big story from yesterday. Migrants cry for freedom during a vocal protest in the Ħal Far detention center. So I just want to be clear, this was not a protest in the Ħal Far open center. This is a protest in the nearby detention center. It's behind the soldiers' barracks in Ħal Far. This is not related to COVID-19 or the quarantine measures being implemented in the open center. So migrants put on a vocal performance. They were seen leaning out of their windows, waving shirts and chanting for freedom. The detention center, it should be noted, is a facility that should be used more as a processing center. I think migrants are only supposed to be there up to 6 weeks. Oftentimes, though, they're stuck there for longer. And this is not the first protest of this type, but it comes during a very sensitive time for Malta. It comes during a week where Malta's grappling with the issue of migration again. Obviously, earlier this week, we talked about how Sharabank host Pepe Azzopardi stepped up to the plate and said that he'd welcome a migrant family into his home as a show of solidarity. Since then, he was attacked online quite brutally. And his son, Shandru Azzopardi, has stepped up. He posted a touching tribute to his father, saying that he's always taught him to forgive those who bully him, taught him to forgive and forget those who talk bad about him. And he said that if he was reborn, he'd still choose him as his father. And not only that, but yesterday a priest talked about this issue in a scathing homily, during a mass marking the 30 months since the death of Maltese journalist Stephanie Caruana Galizia, where he pretty much said Malta's not a Christian country, let alone a human country. Sensitive topic, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah, I think it's really great that these public figures are speaking out for our most vulnerable, especially in this time. I think Pepe Azzopardi, as a public figure, knew he was going to get this mass hate on social media. And Father Gott, I listened to his homily myself, and it was insanely powerful, and for a figure from the Catholic Church to say this, I think speaks multitudes.
That's exactly it.
Speaking of migrants and the migrant crisis in Maltese waters, today's edition of COVID Calls will interview Father Gott, who gave this super powerful homily, Manuel Delia, who will be speaking on behalf of Republica, who are going to be taking Malta to court over the current migration crisis, as well as Minister of Foreign Affairs Evers Bartolo. So be sure to tune in at 11:30 today. In other news, we have to give you obviously our regular COVID-19 update. Yesterday, Superintendent of Health Charmaine Gauci published a map showing where COVID-19 patients live, as previously promised by Minister of Health Chris Fearn. It was last updated when Malta had reached 402 confirmed cases. Now, interestingly, this shows that most of the patients live in the Northern Harbour region, with 142 patients, and the least in Gozo. I think this was the least surprising, with 20 cases over there. However, the map is not weighted according to population of these regions. It doesn't differentiate between active patients, recovered cases, or deaths. And we also have to keep in mind that Malta is super densely populated, and residents leave their towns on a regular basis. So this is just to give an idea of how the cases are spread out across the island, but not giving indicators of risk.
So I think the release of the map is super interesting. It kind of gives you like a visual representation of this pandemic on the island. Obviously, you can read all of these stories on lovinmalta.com. And as you said, Gozo, just 20 cases. I think it kind of shows that the preventative measures, such as limiting the use of the Gozo ferry, testing people going onto the Gozo ferry, has paid dividends. You can clearly see it. And as I said, you can literally see it in the map. So super interesting. I'm not sure if this is so. Obviously, maps, global maps of the pandemic have been quite a big thing, very popular, but I'm not sure how many governments have been rolling these out. So super interesting to see this on the Maltese Islands, especially quite an early stage. But talking about healthcare workers and moving on to our next story, quite a strange story to come out from Bormla late yesterday evening. A healthcare worker has issued a warning to sneaker thieves that stole a pair of shoes from outside his house. But the warning isn't in regards to anything to do with the robbery, but the fact that the thieves might have just opened themselves to getting COVID-19. The pair of sneakers were used by people in a household who work in a testing facility swabbing for COVID-19. And a post was made by someone in the household saying, guys, listen, 2 individuals just came by our house. They stole a pair of shoes that we had outside, but they were outside for a very good reason. They're worn by someone working in a testing facility. They've told them to get. It's so crazy. It's such a crazy story. They said, listen, keep the shoes, or if you want, probably better to get rid of them actually. And if you're going to return them safely in a bag. Oh my God.
And be sure not to wear them if you're going to go get a swab test, because you might run into the guy who those shoes actually are of. My God, super crazy. But speaking of swab tests, I didn't mention before, but there were over 1,000 carried out yesterday. So Malta's really on top of its game in this sense, and there have been over 21,000 swabs carried out since tests started rolling out. Yesterday, we also had 13 confirmed cases announced, and 4 of which were at the Ħal Far Open Center, which now has 33 cases. So going back to all this Ħal Far Center, the migration crisis, closing our ports, I really feel like we're just kind of waiting for this to explode before we actually take proper preventative measures.
I mean, as you said yourself, we've done so many tests, so many swabs, that there's lots of workers working in this field. So guys, public service announcement. If you're walking past the house and there's some shoes outside, they're probably there for a reason. Don't steal them. Definitely don't wear them. You might get COVID-19. You might even get it. And as you go to get tested, you run into the doctor you stole the shoes from. Not only will you be infected, it's going to be very awkward for everyone involved. So just don't do it.
Exactly. In other innovations, let me just mention this really cool thing that Malta's doing as well. Maltese health authorities are now joining the global and EU partners in conducting plasma tests, in which the blood of recovered patients in Malta will be examined in order to come up with hopefully a vaccine against coronavirus. So essentially, they'll be looking at the antibodies developed in recovered patients and seeing if they can use this within a vaccine, which we're all desperately hoping for at this point.
I mean, that's super interesting. And in a recent episode of COVID Calls, when the Health Minister Chris Fearn appeared, I think he actually talked about the vaccine a little bit. Obviously, the thing is this: everyone's working on a vaccine, but once the vaccine is made, there's going to be a bit of a rush from national governments to try and secure this vaccine first for their population. If I'm not mistaken, Fearn mentioned that the government had already reached out to the European Union, to the EU, to kind of see if there's a way for a joint effort for the EU to get medicine for the bloc, so that all EU countries would be promised and secure a vaccine. So there are efforts already in the works to secure Malta a vaccine.
Yeah, in fact, the EU today should be voting on a kind of holistic exit strategy for member states. So we'll definitely be looking for what they have in mind. And I'm sure it's going to involve a vaccine for all member states as well, granted that it comes sooner than later. In other news, in other sad news, especially for us, John, we're both in the music scene in Malta. Two major festivals in Malta that were set to be happen in summer are cancelled. So Earth Garden and Ta'ali's Beer Fest are cancelled. This is the first time that Beer Fest will not be held since 1981. So wow. Before, I believe, both of us were born. And also Ta'ali's Summerfest Earth Garden took to Facebook to announce that this year's edition will be cancelled. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago, we were wondering if the Eurovision was going to be held in May. And now we're already seeing these festivals that will take place in June, July, and August being cancelled. So, I mean, it's super sad news.
These are two of the biggest summer events in Malta. Super popular among all ages. You know, you've got the Varson's Beer Fest, which is a massive family event. You've got everyone from the Nonna to the grandchildren, everyone's going to the Varson's Beer Fest. And then there's Earth Garden, which is one of the biggest alternative events on the island. Both canceled, as you said. So up until a month ago, there were still clubs that were hoping to open up, but everything's canceled now. This is going to be quite a silent summer for the Maltese on Malta. I mean, not only for the Maltese, for many countries around the world, but obviously Malta enjoys its summer in a big, big way. We've got festivals and club nights and all types of gigs occurring. So the fact that the biggest festivals have been canceled, and these are midsummer events, I mean, I think people, better pull out the board games, you know, start downloading those apps and get prepared, because there's not going to be many music events. And until the health authorities start restricting measures, we probably should be avoiding beaches and these type of public places as well.
Shall we go to our last story?
Yeah, it's a great story. I'm really excited for this. So nominations for the Lovin Malta Social Media Awards for 2020 are now open. This comes after the massive debut last year in 2019. And this is the hottest online award show on the island. It's really, really a super show, because we'll be awarding all those making gains and doing massive waves in the online sphere in social media. So we've got incredible categories, from best Instagrammer, best influencer, and best TikToker, all the way to best mommy and daddy influencer. Since we launched the nominations yesterday, Lovin Malta has already received over 500 nominations. You can nominate whoever you want, whoever you think deserves these awards, by going to lovinawards.com. And you've got 4 days left to get your nominations in. And obviously these are powered by Dragonara Online.
There's also a category for pets as well, which I thought was really cool.
Yes, I mean, like I said, there's incredible categories. Last year, the Pet Award actually was won by Titi. Do you remember Titi, the swimming dog, who unfortunately has passed away since then? So obviously Titi got super famous because she would be jumping off St. Peter's Pool in the south of Malta. She was internationally famous, an inspiration to us all. So guys, this is a really great way of paying homage and giving tribute to some of the coolest and biggest names in the Maltese online sphere. So definitely get your nominations on. Head over to the website, lovinawards.com, and nominate who's been making you smile and making you happy online over the last 12 months. I think that brings us to the end of today's show. So for myself and Sam, have a day full of lovin'.